You're listening to Game and Chat, where we level up with conversations about gaming then and now. I'm your host, Daniel, aka One to Switcheroo. So let's press start and game on. Welcome everyone to Season 2 of Game and Chat, streamed directly to your favorite podcast platform. Be sure to like, subscribe, follow, or all of the above to support the cause. And with that being said, we are back, everybody, to episode 5. And what an episode this will be, especially because we already got our first in-depth exposure to a Nintendo Switch 2 and its future games, including the one and only Mario Kart World. However, I will not be mentioning Mario Kart World on this episode. That's gonna come up on the following episode. We're gonna talk about the Nintendo Switch 2 presentation in general and all of our expectations. I will have a dedicated section for that alone, so please look forward to that. But today, it's all about Mario Kart's history. How this franchise that started off back in 1992 on the Super NES will actually become a pinnacle of Nintendo's go-to games in general, and how really shaped the landscape for upcoming racing games that wanted to adopt this concept and try to maybe imitate it, maybe like take their own approach, but it all inspired by the big guys right here, which was the creation of Mario Kart. So we're gonna take a look, we're gonna take a road trip to memory lane and explore Mario Kart's history today and why it's so beloved for so many of us. But before we dive in, I want to thank everybody who has listened to this season so far. 5 episodes in, and after the Animal Crossing episode, we actually reach out to 250 downloads. So thank you, people. Thank you for the tens of people out there that have been listening consistently. You guys are part of this milestone, and I really appreciate every single one of you. And for the new ones coming in, again, welcome everybody. This is Game and Chat. We sit down and chill and talk about our favorite games. Like we're having a conversation with your best friend about the things we love. So please, as usual, sit back, relax. Today, it's all about one of the best, if not the best, racing game ever created, and how every iteration of it has been a shifting point in its history. Since the moment it got released into the NES for the first time, and we got that perception of how a racing card game with items and obstacles can turn out, to how we transitioned to the 64 era and we were on the 3D space with such iconic tracks, and then moving on, of course, with Double Dash and the double driver feature, the Wii and the motion controls, and the behemoth that was in the end Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which is our latest iteration, at least for now. We're gonna go briefly to every single one of them and just reminiscent, and how many memories, some traumatic ones I would say, brings back, but it's all about on the fun and the replayability, because this game is something that you must have on your Nintendo console. Any console you have, you must have Mario Kart, and this is what this series has achieved, to be a staple in every iteration that is presented. But without further ado, people, welcome again. It's so nice to have you guys listening one more time, and welcome to episode 5 of Game and Chat, season 2 of Game and Chat, a road trip through Mario Kart's history. And of course, we're gonna start back at the beginning as we usually do. We're not talking about history since begin where everything started. And as I mentioned briefly on the introduction, just to give you a little bit of a historical context, Mario Kart, Super Mario Kart to be specific, was the first release of the Mario Kart series, and it was released back in 1992 on the Super NES, SNES, SNES, whichever you want to call it. But who would have thought it was going to be the beginning of one of Nintendo's most iconic franchises and how it evolved to what it is today. And just an introduction, you know, it's just the concept of car racing, which, mind you, there were car racers and there were racing games like introduced back in the day, but none of them like shaped the formula like Mario Kart did. And this is how they came up with the concept of car racing, but also combined with items and power-ups that will affect the course and the outcome of the race, which really made a huge difference of how everything played. And make it even more fun because you'll never know how everything will turn out. You could either have a very smooth race or you could be as chaotic as it could be. But a couple of cool facts about this matter, and it's like we almost didn't get Mario Kart itself. It actually, when this game started development, it was originally intended to be a multiplayer for a F-Zero game, basically, which F-Zero, mind you, it started developing then, and it actually became its own game. But then it basically evolve into the spin-off of Mario Kart that we know and love, especially because they were really starting off with how do you able to provide that sense of speed and depth on a 2D console. I mean, the Super NES compared to the NES was already a huge leap. We went from 8-bit to 16 bits on graphics, and then of course after they implemented the Mode 7 graphics, it really allowed that for like sort of like pseudo 3D effects of the SNES that gave that sense of speed and depth. And one of the other games that we see this implemented was Star Fox on the Super NES, which you can see really how, yes, which at the time, and when you look at today's standards, it was running like a 1 frame per second. But the fact that you had like a 3D object moving around, even if it as a game as simple as Star Fox was, and it just give you the Super NES, I keep saying NES, the Super NES, it really was sort of ahead of its time. And maybe with a little bit of extra time in the OS would have been able to capable to do a little bit more, but the fact that they were able to come up with these concepts on such an early stage was just unbelievable. And it only showcases how, like I said, Nintendo developers and creators are just a master on their craft and how they really know the tools that they're working with and how they make things work the way that they're supposed to. But yeah, Super Mario Kart, I mean, my personal memories from Super Mario Kart are barely any, just because of the fact that I didn't own a Super NES when I was a kid, but I had friends that, you know, I would go over and play a little bit. But fun fact, I actually played Mario Kart 64 before Super Mario Kart. I thought for a long time the Mario Kart 64 was the first iteration of Mario Kart ever. So when I go back and play Super Mario Kart, I was like, oh, really? I mean, up until this day, I don't think I ever played that game correctly. And it's like, I don't know, it's a little odd, especially because you don't have this stick. Of course, you play with the Super NES controller. And, but then after you get the hang of it for a little bit, it's actually really fun. And it really is impressive how they were able to come up with this, again, in a 16-bit 2D based console. And there's this unique feel that the game gives you. Again, it gives you like that sense of speed. I still feel like that game feels faster than any of the other modern Mario Karts that we have up until this day for some reason, which is for me more difficult to control. But it's just, you know, it's nice to see like where things came from and how it evolved to be what it is right now, especially because, of course, it's the first iteration of Mario Kart. So with the introduction of items, and this is where, you know, all those iconic items that up until this day we still use are still coming back. Of course, I mean, we're talking about, I mean, you can't have a Mario Kart with a banana peel or a green or red shell. It's like, these are like the three main items that doesn't matter which iteration, it's always gonna come back. And, you know, I feel like Mario Kart will just go down the drain if they decide to cut off some of those items, because that's what makes and breaks the game. I'd say literally, you can just put those 3 items in one Mario Kart game, and it's still gonna be a decent game because it's most of the tools that you use anyway, the more useful. But I mean, just thinking back and how this just laid the foundation, and how would eventually will become a cultural phenomenon and really expand upon that even further that we will ever imagine. And we can feel this from the beginning, and now a few years later when it become and we actually got the Nintendo 64, how it really turned things around. And on that note, we move forward to 1996 when one of my favorite Mario Kart games got released, and of course we just talked about it. It is Mario Kart 64. This was a game that I remember and played, and like one of those games that I know like the back of my hand so vividly, and how really we went through the sense of speed and immersion on a 2D space that Super Mario Kart provide, to now this being fully fledged on a 3D environment. And mind you, Mario Kart 64 sprites are actually 2D, but they are 2D sprites on certain positions, so every time you turn around it will just like turn in real time, which, you know, if you asked me when I was a kid if this was even a thing, I would say no, these are 3D sprites, and like, they're 3D characters, but the way they actually handle this is genius, and up until this day I still don't know how to do it. It's really, so what Mario Kart 64 did basically is just like make the shift in the series to 3D polygonal graphics. So we're talking about, you know, the introduction of polygons, which we got with Super Mario 64 and Zelda Ocarina of Time, and putting this into the tracks actually makes them look like even more dynamic and intricate. You can see the level of detail of, like, you know, now we get to ride through mountains and like houses and like farms and actual racetracks, which looked amazing back in the day. I mean, we're talking about so many iconic races, and you know, if I put my mind to work, I'm pretty sure I can name every single race in this game. I'm not gonna risk it right now because I might not remember one or two that I barely play, but so many things that this game did, and not only on the, you know, on the graphics side of things, but also, like, funny enough, the Nintendo 64 being a console that it was focusing on the multiplayer, couch multiplayer aspect of things. For the first time in history, we get a 4-player multiplayer Mario Kart, which at the time, of course, it was groundbreaking. And that's where all of our memories come from, is us sitting down after school, after lunch or dinner, gathering up with our friends in our neighborhood, and sit down and play 2 hours of Mario Kart and yell at each other, of course, because we will go really hard with the shells, especially in battle mode, which was really freaking cool. But, you know, besides all of that, like I said before, so many iconic courses that this introduced. I mean, we got the Moo Farm, we got Koopa Troopa Beach with their sort of tropical thing that, see, up at the stage lives rent-free on my mind. Calamari Desert, which, you know, it came with a very simple concept, and then it got redone in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe on a very, very, very unique way, and I really loved it. It really revamped that course for me a lot. But then we got the traditional Rainbow Road, which, mind you, Rainbow Road already existed in Super Mario Kart before. However, I feel like the Super Mario 64 Rainbow Road will still remain one of the most iconic, if not for me, the most iconic Rainbow Road ever created. To the point that it was actually represented in F-Zero X, which sadly enough, it didn't, I don't know if it's a Japan version or maybe a 64DD version, but there is you're able to play the course, yes, but then there's a track version of the Rainbow Road from Mario Kart 64 that was made with the instrumentation of F-Zero X, but that didn't make it to the West for some reason, and I don't know why, because it sounds really, really freaking cool. But just to put it aside, and of course with the introduction of Battle Mode 2 and how, you know, this game brings me back so many memories, and even up until this day when I go back to it, I remember being very good, but I don't know, maybe the Nintendo Switch Online is not the very best to play it, because I feel like I've been like crashing and turning a lot since then. But this game gives me so many memories. It's one of the most cherished memories I have from my all-time friends on my apartment building that I used to live, and which up until this day we chat and like we reminisce about these good times that we had. And just to put it in that perspective, I remember, because I didn't have a 64 right away. I had it like a year or two later. So every time I will come back after school, I would just go to my best friend's house on that same apartment building, and we would just like play Mario 64 and Mario Kart. We would go back and forth with the games. I remember there was a point this was one of my first exposures like to full-fledged gaming. This is one of the games that made me a gamer. If you want more details, you can go back all the way to episode 0 of Game and Chat, my gaming journey, and you can see where Daniel became a gamer. But anyway, I think it might be the first time I actually played Mario Kart, and I was so blown away and so entertained to the point that we were playing for so long, and you just wanted to keep playing. I didn't want to stop. And I remember my friends at some point getting bored and they went down to the park and play. I would still be on my best friend's house playing the game, and I remember their mom just like making food for us, but then everybody went down. I was just still there playing to the point that my mom at some point had to come pick me up because it was like an hour past playtime, and I was just like hypnotized of how fun and entertainment this was. So yeah, looking back, it's like, damn, Daniel, you you really took advantage. But listen, I didn't have a 64. That, if anything, that only made my pressure my mom to give me a 64, and a year later after that fact, I finally got it. So very happy my strategy secretly worked. Of course, this is just one of few great memories I have with family, friends, and I'm sure you have similar memories about this. And I still feel like Mario Kart 64 up until this day, I would say even still holds pretty well, because even with the art style and the graphics are pure dated, I feel like it's one of those games that really lives up to his reputation. And even with the little flaws that nowadays we might see, it's something that we can always come back and put a smile on our faces and really give us that cozy nostalgia feeling that sometimes we missed out. And now we move on from Mario Kart 64 and we go back to 2001, especially because for the first time we got our very first Mario Kart on a handheld device, and this would be Mario Kart Super Circuit, released on the Game Boy Advance back in 2001, and how it really featured sort of like, it was kind of like a mixing between the NES, Super NES style of graphics and the Nintendo 64 style of graphics, and give you that same sensation. It's kind of like a upscale Super Mario Kart style game, and it actually turned out to be really fun. Again, I didn't own a Game Boy Advance until later in the date, so when I played it, I thought it was like a really cool concept. Of course, going from Mario Kart 64 to Super Circuit could be a little bit of a hassle, because technically you're going on a lower, in a less powerful machine. However, the fact that they're able to get this like crisp image on a handheld mode, and actually you can see the sprites even better than Mario Kart 64. It was really great. And a fun fact about this is because it was solely based on like I said, like a blend between two. All the tracks from Super Mario Kart were actually unlockable in this game, which is something that I didn't know until I researched it. So I'm actually go back and like replay Super Circuit just to get that feeling. Maybe Nintendo Switch Online, I might do that. But yeah, I mean, of course, it was groundbreaking. You never thought you would have a Mario Kart game in a handheld, and the Game Boy Advance managed to pull it off, which was awesome. But what we're going to talk about now is about the big dog, one of the big dogs in the Mario Kart series here. And that is, my friends, Mario Kart Double Dash, released on the Nintendo GameCube in 2003. Double Dash, I mean, definitely the most unique entry in the series. And the fact that coming from 64 to this, it was like night and day. A super huge leap, not only on the graphical aspect of things. Like, I remember seeing Double Dash for the first time at my cousin's apartment when he had a GameCube first, and I was like, oh my god. And it really, it's hard to look back to Mario Kart 64 after seeing Double Dash. It's like, how is this even possible in the first place? But not only that, we're talking about here one of the coolest, maybe most divisive mechanics that it's in any Mario Kart, and how it's definitely the unique game of the series because of the fact that you would control two characters per card. So this is where the first ever sort of co-op Mario Kart comes through, which, mind you, it's not the same multiplayer than co-op, which multiplayer was there. You can still compete against each other. However, the fact that you have two characters per card, you can either choose to compete against each other or be together in one card. And how the switching character mechanics, one is the driver, one is the item user, really shake and put this franchise upside down for me in a very good way. Not only that, we were introduced to character unique items, which is kind of a divisive situation, and I do understand where people are coming from with this. On concept, is great. I mean, we're talking about, for example, if you were teaming up with Bowser, we have like a big Bowser shell. And if you are teaming up with Mario will have the Mario Fireballs. And then here's where it starts like falling apart. Only the Koopa Troopas will have the triple shells of their own color. And yes, it is unfortunate on that regard, especially because you were so used to use the Koopa shell and the three Koopa shells every time you will get it on the item box. The fact that we're locked in behind a character draw a lot of people back into it, draw me back to a little bit of it. So we end up with just having a Koopa Troopa on our party at all times. However, we cannot deny that even with this sort of drawback, the co-op driving mechanics and, you know, how the other player, or when one player will control the car, the other one control the items, really, it was amazing. And again, how they were introduced to the other iconic tracks that we reminisce and we go back to. I mean, we're talking about Dino Jungle. What else? We got DK Mountain, which the first time you get to DK Mountain and you just go up to that hill and you get into that cannon, you get launched into this mountain, angry mountain, which is erupting, by the way, which was scary and fun at the same time. And it gives this sensation of speed that no other Mario Kart had. And, you know, one thing I have to say about this Mario Kart is that how chaotic and sort of like rough it was. I mean, we're talking about the GameCube era of Nintendo. It was a little bit on the greedy. They weren't very afraid to show a little bit of extra personality, to the point that, you know, being a little bit rough with their characters. I mean, we're talking about when you get hit with the shell, the guys will like roll back, and if you get hit with a blue shell, the car will go up and down, and then the driver in the back would just be dragging on the floor for like 5 seconds before getting back up in the car. Mind you, you can still get hit and you cannot use items while this happens. So it was something like it was something very like rough to see, but at the same time hilarious. And all the improvements they brought in the battle mode too. We don't have balloon battles, which seems a little bit more strategic, because now you need to pick up the right characters to do so. But also they introduced the bomb blast and the famous shine teeth, which made a huge hit back in the day, and then it just made its comeback on Mario Kart 8 recently. So it was just Double Dash brought so much things to the table that we cannot deny its impact, and why is right up there as being one of the best Mario Karts, or at least one of the most remembered Mario Karts out there, and everything that influenced it after. Me in particular, when I look back into this game, it's just pure chaos and pure fun, and I hope it's a concept that Nintendo is willing to revisit at some point during their history, just because I mean it's just very particular on how it plays, and you know, it's not something like easy that you can use. I mean, the only thing you can do is just release another Mario Kart, calling it Mario Kart Double Dash 2, especially because then after that it's been just like a single kart racer, basically. And then I don't know. I guess I just wanted to say that they should just remaster this game and release it side to side. I'm sure there's a different audience to it, and it wouldn't hurt any of the other selves of the mainline Mario Kart. So please, Nintendo, if you're listening to this ever, please re-release Double Dash in any form of capacity. Heck, I'll take it on the GameCube NSO for now, and that will be enough to get that chaotic game going and relieve its popularity. And then we move on to the DS and Wii era, starting off in 2005 with the release of Mario Kart DS. This was a huge leap also in regards to not only still on the handheld side, is looking, if not as good, if not better than a Nintendo 64 game. And it introduced the convenience of the dual screen, on which on the top screen you'll see the main screen where you drive and see the player and all that, but then you have the accessibility on the bottom screen that you can see the whole map by itself, or you can turn it into the steering wheel. All the things that ways to play and innovations that the DS brought to the table as a console in general really help out this game, with this one being one of the most popular out there amongst the handhelds itself. And you know, this is one of the first Mario Karts that introduced a couple first and took inspiration of games like, for example, Diddy Kong Racing. I mean, we're talking about a sort of single player challenge mode that it brought to the table, which you will like fight bosses or do certain things like in the courses, which was really cool. In not any other Mario Kart prior has done before, and he added a sense of like sort of like a single player adventure experience that it was just freaking phenomenal, especially for coming on a single console. But they also really like lean on the retro courses, and we're starting to see remakes of the courses from previous game. They call it retro cups, and then how that stick like going forward. It was really nice. It was really nice to see the reinvention of courses that we knew and love. Mario Kart DS is a game that I play barely, just because I didn't own a DS per se. I went from the Game Boy to the 3DS when it comes down to handhelds. However, I did experience a couple of it. I didn't experience what's this adventure mode we're talking about, but I've seen how fun it was, and also because I didn't have it, I didn't know there was a thing until probably years later, and I was actually get to experience it. Oh, this is actually freaking cool. I wish I would have bring it back. It kind of reminds me of that whole Diddy Kong Racing feeling. Diddy Kong Racing will have its own episode, because still feel that's one of the peak like racing games out there. But back to Mario Kart. Courses that are come from the top of my mind, I think that the only one that really stands out is the Airship Fortress, which is the one that you go basically across like on the sky, you get across the ship, and you get the bullet bills shooting at you, and you need to avoid them left and right. That one really made a huge impact. I'm actually surprised I haven't like redone it on modern standards, at least for what I remember from the top of my head. But yeah, Mario Kart DS was great, and you know, introduced this whole section and like the retro cups and the adventure mode. And it actually controlled really well. You know, for a console that only had a D-pad that you need to go left and right, actually controlled really well. But of course, we're gonna refer to now to the star of the 2000s decade, which was none other than Mario Kart Wii. Mario Kart Wii, which for a very long time was the best-selling Mario Kart out there because of their accessibility, and basically one of the first in the series, of course, with the Wii introducing the Nintendo Wi-Fi connection. Now it was one of the first Mario Karts that introduced online play. So this is where we get crazy, because of course if you have online play, it means you can play with friends, which, mind you, this was also introduced on the DS. So let me correct myself there. The DS brought online play for the first time, but I guess Mario Kart Wii perfected it. And you know, it's online Mario Kart as intended, and it should be. But anyway, global competition was on the board. Of course, that's going to bring more people to try the game and have a lot of time playing it and honing their skills. But of course, expanding the audience with the whole concept of motion with the Wii, we got introduced to motion controls with the Wii wheel. Fun fact, when I first started the game, when I first played, I thought motion controls were the only way to play, and I was so disappointed. It actually, you know, on a personal level, I have certain feelings with Mario Kart Wii, because not only looks almost the same that Double Dash. I actually feel like Double Dash looks slightly better. I don't know why. Feels slightly better. There was just things that really dropped me back from the experience, and I was like, oh, I was playing Mario Kart Wii and they didn't feel that same like cool factor that Double Dash did. And then of course, we got the accessibility with the controllers, and you can also play with the classic controller or the GameCube controller. So that was like, okay, now we're talking. Good. But yeah, I mean, it's not worth mentioning that was one of the second best-selling Mario Kart game as of now. Over 37 million copies, and the fact that this game actually introduced the acrobatics and the trick system, basically, and will allow you to make cool tricks in the air, and just like U-loops that you see like on the others. You can do the skateboards, and then you'll do the tricks, so you can get a little bit of extra turbo. But also, it introduced the bikes. So now we only had karts and bikes for us to choose and see which will be our most convenient way to play. Sounds contradictory. If that's the case, you should just call it Mario Vehicle Wii, because you can just be different vehicles. But I mean, we're talking about hovercrafts and planes now, so I shouldn't complain anymore. But just give you this plethora of options to play around and to see how you enjoy the game. Of course, we're talking about audiences, and I mean, not to throw shade on the motion users out there. I think it's like a cool concept for a second, but at the end of the day, you just want to race and be good at the game. So, controller is the way to go, let's face it. But yeah, I mean, it just brought more audiences to the game and actually help with the sales, as you can see right there. Because a lot of people on the casual side would just like pick it up and just like have fun with it. And I feel like I said, with Mario Kart, I didn't have the same like impact of level of like, oh my god, this is so cool, like Double Dash or 64 did. I did enjoy my time with the game. I play with my friends all the time. I play with my family members all the time. And still, up until this day, we see people still playing it. They consider it to be the best Mario Kart, especially because it was on the Wii, and the Wii is one of the consoles that you can just like blink and the console can be modded. So all the modders use Mario Kart Wii to test out their course creations and share it with the world. And I've seen crazy ones out there, and it really appeals to the others that this sort of like quote-unquote accessibility, because you're not supposed to be doing that, but it is fun to see people tackling on new ways to play Mario Kart Wii. And like, even after the Wii is already long gone, we still have a good audience for it, and people still truly enjoying it, especially gamers that want to take the console to the next level and putting all the mods all in one place. And then we got to the big ones, the big leagues, as they say, which is the 2010 decade with two also of the best-selling Mario Karts out there. Mario Kart 7 starting us off, released on the Nintendo 3DS in 2011. This one I did own, and I got to play the heck out of it, and it was great. I mean, having a very good-looking Mario Kart on the 3DS. My 3DS is one of my favorite consoles. I still have mine 3DS over here, and I'll go back often, and all I can think was like, these games look so good for this little console right there, and it will deserve its own episode because I really adore my 3DS and everything that my 3DS brought to me since I got it. But talking back to Mario Kart 7, I mean, not only we got polished graphics for a handheld system that look great, if not as good as the Wii, if not better in sometimes, but then we finally got introduced to new mechanics like the gliders, of course, which was the main appeal. Now you were able to glide a little bit across all the stage, give you that small sensation like flying or like being on a plane. And not only that, we also brought for the first time the underwater driving, so now you wouldn't just like plop into the water and be picked up by Lakitu. Turns out there's like a whole world of courses at the bottom of the ocean, and you'll be able to still drive around. And car customization, which took them long enough. I mean, the only customization sort of that we have was like Double Dash with the whole 2 driver system, but this car customization was actually a really welcome feature because now people could be like mix and match which cars and wheels and gliders that they would like, not only aesthetic purposes, but now we have the stats also that will affect the driving features, and you know, you can mix and match and like pick up your favorite and see which one was more customizable. And Mario Kart 3DS, I mean, amazing game, and you know, the Wi-Fi run better, the communications run better, and the game run very, very, very smooth, 60 frames per second on a 3DS. And you know, at the moment when I played Mario Kart 3DS, I was mostly keeping it to myself. I was a little disappointed that the single player experience was basically removed. So we just stick to the racing and the Wi-Fi features, but you know, a soul for a soul. We learned that. So, I mean, I do appreciate that. Other than that, you know, bringing like better 3DS tracks and how the 3D effect actually worked really well in the system. We got introduced to very nice characters like Lakitu and Wiggler, which, funny enough, Wiggler looks extremely hilarious just driving the car with the 2 hands at the bottom, and then the other 2 hands are just like, woo, in the air. So that is hilarious. But yeah, I mean, Mario Kart 7 is more so of a visual upgrade than like innovation. Yes, it brought really cool courses to the table, Mushroom Gorge, and one of the best rainbow roads out there still. The 3DS version is actually really, really cool, and it looks even much better on the remake of 8 Deluxe, which we'll touch base in a little bit. But of course, for Mario Kart 7, Nintendo for the first time actually attempted the introduction of first-person driving, which was a first in the series. And you know, you can also play with the gyroscope controls, so you can just tilt your 3DS in order to steer the vehicle. And you know, again, giving more reasons to play. And the first-person mode actually looks pretty cool. You know, something that you haven't seen before in Mario Kart. It will be very interesting to see this more on a console aspect of things. I don't know if World will implement this, but if they do, that would be a very welcome feature. And you know, I always go back and forth with Mario Kart 7 because, again, I love my 3DS, and it's one of the games that I would like touch base on. And I get to play with my husband sometimes, and it's really, really cool. But now, people, it is time to talk about the big one. It is time to talk about the phenomenon, the everlasting, the non-stoppable Mario Kart 8/Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. We've been living with this game for more than 10 years. And not even, I would say almost 10 years. Basically, in 2014, when Mario Kart 8 released on the Wii U, and how this really was that big aha moment that I didn't get from the Wii. And the leap from the Wii to the Wii U in terms of graphics was just next level. I mean, we're talking about amazing lighting visuals, brighter colors, the stunning HD graphics, Mario's model that just looks like the box art, and how really it was such a big impact to the eyes when you saw that trailer for the first time. And, you know, of course, we're going to talk about the anti-gravity mechanics, which at the time you would think of, okay, so they've done a lot of things. They've done like first-person driving. They've done the glider. Like, what else can you like implement in this game to make a difference? And they come up with the anti-gravity mechanics, which allow you to play for players to race on walls and ceilings. And wow, this really made a huge impact. I mean, it really made a huge impact, because nowadays Mario Kart 8 was the best-selling game on the platform. And then, you know, with all the introduction of the courses and how the course, oh my god, this is some of the best looking courses. I mean, the best looking courses in general, but what I'm talking about is like these courses alone are amazing. Like one by one, Mario Kart 8 has a lot of the best courses in the entire franchise. Not only visual wise, but like the creativity of it was just unbelievable. And the way they addressed the retro cups and how they took all those courses to the next level. I mean, to put an example, they recreated the Rainbow Road of Nintendo 64, and I feel like up until this day, despite the fact that it's only one lap now, for me it's like the best looking course in any Mario Kart game. When I saw that for the first time, I got really excited, and then just driving around it, I was almost sort of emotional, because this is how the course looked in my mind when I was playing it when I was a kid. And to see it realize on this whole aesthetic of like brighter colors on the sky with the choo-choo train just driving around throwing coins, and it's like, it's just a celebration. Felt like a celebration of the entire Mario Kart history up until that day. And again, I just keep playing that course over and over when I play 8, because it's just, it brings me joy. And I just love Mario Rainbow Road 64. It's Mario Kart 64. It's my favorite Mario Kart for nostalgia's sakes. So seeing it realized on the Wii U and then on the Switch, it was just unbelievable. And you know, of course, for facts about this game that brought to the table, I mean, they broke the traditional rules of Mario Kart, and they started blending tracks into one another, and then removing the lap system in some courses. I mean, we got the introduction of Mount Wario, which was point A to point B, which is nothing that has been seen before on the series, which was a really nice take. And you know, we also got like multi-laps, like with the introduction of the DLC tracks with Side Bike, for example, which is a really nice track as well. And you know, the biggest Mario Kart out there with 48 tracks on both new and remaster from past games. And to think that this was going to be double a few more years later, when we thought the game was more than done, then they surprised us. On 2017, we got the release of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and we were not only blown away, because at first it was just a simple port with a little refinement on the visuals, but the game was essentially the same. They did it so people that didn't get to experience that because they didn't buy the Wii U just got it, and the game did exceptionally well. I mean, we're talking about over 60 something million copies, maybe 70 at this point, and it's just the best selling game on the Switch. I mean, it was so successful that freaking Nintendo will show us that Nintendo Switch Mario Kart bundle every single year since 2017 on the holiday season. And you know what? I think they're gonna do it again this year, even with the new one coming out, because I truly believe that it's just their golden goose, and they're looking forward to break the record of best-selling console of all time for any platform. So listen, we'll see how that turns out. But not only that, the game released in 2017, the remaster. And then they hit us in 2023, I think it was, 2022, 2023, that they were gonna add the booster course pass, which will basically double the amount of the races in the game. Mind you, they were working on the new iteration. Like, we were desperate for the new iteration. I mean, we've been playing this game since 2014. It's been over 10 years now. So we're counting the Wii U release, of course. So we were kind of like, yeah, mind you, Mario Kart 8 still holds up pretty well. But we were like, what else? Like, what's next? We need to know what's next. And then they hit us with, yeah, next is 48 tracks of the same game, which, mind you, yeah, still cool. But we were like, okay, but what's next? But the job that they did with these tracks, not only they brought the tracks from Mario Kart Tour into Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which was a smart move because not many people played the Tour game because of the whole microtransactions and stuff. But the fact that they were able to translate them really well and then bring back some of the fan favorites like Coconut Mall, we brought back Wii Rainbow Road, and all the Rainbow Roads I think are playable in this game now, which is crazy. And made new tracks from scratch, like Sky High Sunday, Merry Mountain, which looks amazing, especially playing it during the Christmas time. Calamari Desert and its remastered version of the Nintendo 64 Classic. It's just great. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is just a phenomenon of a game itself. And we don't even know how such a behemoth of racing game can be pushed further. But guess what? We're about to find out very soon. And well, now for anticipation and what we can expect for the next iteration. I mean, at the time of this recording, we have seen the trailer of the new Mario Kart with Mario Kart World, and just a little bit of like what is being seen. And other than what we've seen on the trailer, and again, if you haven't seen the trailer, please go for it. I'm just gonna go over what we don't know on and what I'm expecting to. So listen, like I say, 8 Deluxe pushed the series forward, and I feel like with the first thing that we've seen on the trailer, it's already been pushed even further, things that we didn't think about. Some of them that we did, and some of them that we did not. So that's really cool to see. What I'm expecting more so for Mario Kart World is replayability aspects. And it seems like they are going to address that already. But what I'm talking about is like, if I were to grab things from past games, for example, the DS with the single player experience, I would love to see something like that. I'm taking an example, for example, Diddy Kong Racing or Crash Team Racing, which got inspired by Diddy Kong Racing, the story mode and how those story modes were engaging, and you still be racing, but you know, it will give you like a sort of like sense of purpose and achievement. So I really hope they bring that back. I really hope that, you know, being this vast world that Mario Kart World is showing, they really take advantage of the situation. It's just a vast world that you can just drive in around, because at the end of the day, you know, you're just gonna just drive around a couple times, then it's gonna get old. So, you know, we're talking about the most successful franchise. So they really need to put the money and the dedication to make it long and everlasting as Mario Kart 8 and 8 Deluxe was. I mean, we're probably gonna be sticking around with this Mario Kart for like 10 years. So I hope that they bring the same passion and they have a really, really good plan ahead of it. And then 10 years from now, we could talk about Mario Kart World Deluxe with like a whole new world to explore, maybe in space, maybe underwater. But I mean, this could be Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is the biggest Mario Kart ever made with 98 tracks, 96 tracks. I mean, I'm not saying they're going to bring 96 tracks again, but if you add so many ways to play this game and take it even further, then it couldn't be a better launch for the Switch 2 in general. With the more successful franchise, bringing all the audiences together, with the introduction of the new communication features that the Switch 2 brings to the table. I mean, we're talking about a recipe for success, and based on the history and like how thinking of Mario Kart, it's like I said, it's an essential. It's a go-to game that you need to have on your system at all times. And if you don't have Mario Kart on the Switch, you're doing it wrong, my friend. You need to have Mario Kart on the Switch, whether you like it or not, because that's just the game that gets the party started. And it will always be one of Nintendo's greatest and one of Nintendo's hard, if not the hardest game to imitate by other companies. And I feel bad for Sonic Racing Cross Worlds, which, mind you, that game looks amazing, don't get me wrong, but after seeing what we saw a couple of days ago, it's like, wow, they really stepped it up. And wow, it's like, man, now it's like Sonic Cross Worlds. You, mind you, again, I'm still gonna enjoy it. I think it's a really cool concept. They have their own thing going on. But Mario Kart just blew it out of the water, man. I had to say. Although they do take some pointers. I mean, the transforming vehicles, basically, they got it from that pretty much, besides Diddy Kong and all that. I'm bringing up Diddy Kong. I'm going to have to make a whole episode of Diddy Kong Racing. That game is sick up until this day. But anyway, in conclusion, the future of Mario Kart is just brighter and brighter. And we're about to see a whole new world of possibilities with the newest release very, very soon. And with that, people, thank you so much for tuning in. We reached the end of episode 5 of season 2 of Game and Chat, of 1 2 Switcheroo, etc., etc., etc. But anyway, thank you so much, people, for listening. I mean, of course, Mario Kart had to have its own episode. It's like one of the game, if not the game, to have on the system, as we just mentioned, and it deserves all the praise and success, because there's not a better multiplayer experience than this game. And when you look back and they ask you, anybody, what's your favorite multiplayer game, Mario Kart will always be on that top 10 or even that top 5 at all times. It's because it brings joy, it brings rage, it brings families, and it brings families together, and it tears friendships apart. So yeah, do both inclusive. So definitely, it's a game will always be remembered and will always be in our lives from on and on. That being said, people, thank you so much for watching, for listening, hopefully watching very soon. We'll see how things play out when it comes down to video editing, but it's on the mind. We'll see if that project comes to fruition. However, of course, what I've been playing this week, actually, we've been playing Split Fiction. It's kind of like a tradition every weekend. We're trying to go a little bit further with Split Fiction. We're almost near the end, and we'll be enjoying the game to bits. In other notes, I'm happy to report that my husband finally beat Tears of the Kingdom. I'm very proud of him for defeating Ganon. So shout out to Sebastian. I love you. Congratulations on your achievement. And, you know, just being like bombarded with the whole Switch 2 news that we just got recently. And I cannot wait. I can simply not wait for its release. I don't want to play Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom anymore until the console comes out. You'll find out more why on the next episode, which stay tuned, because we're going to discuss about that whole Switch 2 Direct and the Treehouse and the presentation and our first actual thoughts on the console and what its future for Nintendo could mean. But anyway, guys, that's going to bring us till the end of the episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. Really appreciate it. You guys know where to find me on Blue Sky, on X, on Instagram, all social media platforms. And if you want to listen to the podcast, you can do so on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music. Wait, I said Apple Music, Apple Podcasts, my apologies. Anyway, every podcast platform out there, Game and Chat will be there to keep you entertained with a chill conversation about gaming with your best friend. So, thank you so much, everybody. I hope to see you guys on next episode. Take care, everyone. Get hyped. The Switch 2 is coming soon, and we'll be here for it. This is Daniel, aka 1 2 Switcheroo, signing off. Game on.